What kind of woman leaves a note in your boyfriend's nightstand that says don't believe anything he says, and why is it written in your handwriting? If you're expecting me to answer that now, I can't. Because when I first saw that note, I thought it was a joke. I thought a lot of things were jokes back then. Like the way my friends said I fell in love too fast. Like how my mother whispered over the phone that nice men don't like chaos and I was too much of it. Like how my therapist once told me that I didn't trust my own memory and that one day it might get me hurt. None of that felt real until Daniel, until him. Until the house, the lake, the locked door at the end of the hallway and the note. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it always starts, the moment you swipe right on a stranger and decide, without knowing anything, that you want them to be your future. My name is Emma Collins, and by the time I met Daniel, I was tired of starting over. My life felt like a series of half-finished projects, half-finished degree, half-finished relationships, half-finished attempts at the app 10 minutes later. The app was a parade of the same man copied over and over, men holding fish, men with gym selfies, men with cars they probably didn't own. I matched with a few. They called me beautiful and cute and fun, and then some of them disappeared mid-conversation like id bored them into digital oblivion. I almost deleted the app on the third day right before his profile appeared. Daniel Rivers, no fish, no gym selfie, no car, just a single photo him sitting at a cafe table wearing a navy sweater, hands wrapped around a coffee mug. Dark hair a little messy, strong jaw. Calm eyes that looked straight into the camera like he actually knew the person taking the picture. His bio was short. I fix broken houses, still learning how to fix people, looking for someone who laughs easily and doesn't run from the rain. It felt different. I stared at the photo for a long time, tracing the lines of his face with my eyes. Then I swiped right. We matched instantly, which meant he'd already swiped right on me. It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. Say something clever, Haley said, sprawled on the couch next to me with a bowl of popcorn. Like, do you fix broken women too? That sounds desperate, I muttered. You are desperate. I ignored her and typed, Hi, Daniel. So what's the worst house you ever had to fix? I stared at the screen, waiting. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Hey, Emma, that's an easy one. A house with beautiful windows and rotten foundations. It kept pretending it was fine until it nearly collapsed. I frowned. There was something unsettlingly accurate about that. Sounds like a metaphor, I wrote. Most things are, he replied. I smiled against my will. We messaged all evening. He told me he was 33, a contractor who specialized in restoring old houses. He liked thunderstorms, strong coffee, and morning runs. He didn't watch much TV. He preferred books, mostly thrillers. I told him I liked baking cookies I never finished eating, reading half a book and then abandoning it, and staying in bed until the last possible second on work days. He laughed at almost everything. It was easy, too easy. Video call, Haley insisted at midnight when I was still clutching my phone. At least to make sure he's not a 60-year-old man in a basement. I considered it, but video calls made me nervous. I always felt like my face didn't know what to do. Instead, when Daniel wrote, Can I call you? My heart skipped. I stared at the question for a full minute before typing OK. The phone rang almost immediately. Hi, he said, and his voice was warm. Deeper than I expected, calm like the way his eyes looked in the photo. Hi, I echoed, feeling suddenly stupid. I'm glad you swiped right, he said. You're even more interesting when you type. I laughed because that sounded like a compliment, even though it made no sense. We talked until my phone battery hit 3. When I plugged it in and finally collapsed into bed, Haley called out sleepily from her room. So, is he a murderer? I hesitated. No, I said. I wasn't sure why a tiny, irrational piece of me whispered, Not yet. Our first date was 1 week later. He picked a little Italian place downtown, the kind with brick walls and candles in wine bottles, not the kind with laminated menus and red plastic cups. "You look exactly like your photos," he said when I walked in. "You don't," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. "You look better," I added quickly, feeling heat rush to my cheeks. His smile was slow and deliberate, like he meant it. Dinner was easy. He told me stories about clients with impossible demands, about restoring an old Victorian where they'd found letters behind the walls from a woman to her secret lover. He said he loved working with his hands because Wood never lied. You could see every mistake, every nail. I told him about the clinic, the endless stream of patients who stared at me like I was personally responsible for their 20-minute wait time. He asked questions, real ones. He didn't just ask what I did, he asked if I liked it, if I slept well, if I saw my family often. Most men he'd met wanted bullet points. Daniel wanted chapters. At one point, I mentioned lightly my forgetfulness thing. He studied me over his glass of wine. "What do you mean? I just forget little things," I said. "My keys, locking the door, whether I sent an email or not. It's probably nothing. The doctor says it's just stress." "And do you think it's nothing?" he asked. The question startled me. Sometimes I wonder if I am just rewriting things in my head, I admitted, hating how vulnerable it sounded, or if I remember them wrong. "But that's overdramatic, right?" "Not necessarily," he said quietly, "but it doesn't make you crazy." He said it like he meant it, like he believed me, like he believed in me. Nobody ever said it like that before. When he drove me home that night, he walked me to my building door and stood there, hands in his coat pockets, looking up at the flickering hallway light. "This place doesn't suit you," he said. I bristled. "What's wrong with it?" He tilted his head. "Do you want the contractor answer or the boyfriend answer?" "You're not my boyfriend," I said automatically. "Not yet," he said with a half smile. "Contractor answer, the foundation is cracked, the wiring's a nightmare, and that roof is going to leak all over your bedroom in the next big storm." "Boyfriend answer, you deserve something safer." I swallowed. "I can't afford anything better," I said. He looked at me for a long moment. "Maybe not yet," he said finally, "but you will." It sounded like a promise. It felt like a prediction. For the next month, he texted every morning. "Good morning, sunshine, drink water. Good luck with your awful Tuesday. I am on a roof, pray I don't fall. Thinking of you. Send me a picture of something that made you smile today." We went on real dates, not just Netflix and cheap wine, museums, bookstores. A drive to the lake one Sunday afternoon where he pointed to the houses along the water and described what was wrong with each one. "I see skeletons," he said, "hands on the steering wheel, not the Dacre kind. The beams, the structure, the things holding the house together. What about people?" I asked. "Do you see their skeletons too?" "Sometimes," he said. We didn't fight, not in the beginning. We didn't talk about anything dark or complicated. Not really. He knew that my ex had called me dramatic and too sensitive. He knew that sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding and no memory of the dream that caused it. He knew my father barely called and my mother only called to criticize. I knew his parents had divorced when he was a teenager and he hadn't spoken to his father in years. I knew he'd had one long-term relationship that ended badly. I didn't know why. I didn't ask. Some things you don't want to dig into when everything feels fragile and new. The first red flag should have been so obvious that I still can't believe I didn't see it. I was at his place for the third time. Until then, Wed mostly stayed at mine, messy, small, familiar. I knew where the cracks in the paint were, where the floorboard creaked outside the bathroom door. His apartment was different. The first time I walked in, I thought I was stepping into a furniture catalog, clean lines, neutral colors, nothing on the walls except one black and white photograph of some nameless city street in the rain. "Nice place," I said. "Thanks," he replied. "It's temporary." I didn't ask what that meant. On that third visit, he cooked dinner, actual dinner. Roasted chicken, vegetables, a bottle of wine that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. After we ate, he left to take a quick call in the hallway, leaving me alone in the living room. I should have stayed on the couch. But curiosity is a muscle I never learned to control. I walked over to his bookshelf. The books were mostly thrillers, just like Hidi said, with a few biographies of obscure architects and a manual on restoring historic homes. My eyes drifted to the lowest shelf, where a thin black notebook was tucked partially behind a stack of magazines. My fingers moved before my brain could talk me out of it. I picked it up and flipped it open. The first page held a list of addresses. Houses, maybe. Some had check marks, some didn't. The second page had a list of names. 3 of them were crossed out in thick black ink. One of the names stopped my breath. Sophie, 2 years. I heard his voice behind me. "What are you doing?" I jumped, slamming the notebook shut and whirling around. Daniel stood in the doorway, phone in his hand, his expression unreadable. I'm sorry, I stammered. What is this? He held out his hand for the notebook. I hesitated before giving it back. It's just old stuff, he said, sliding it back onto the shelf without looking at me. What kind of old stuff? I asked. Are those ex-girlfriends? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Are you going through my things because you don't trust me? The question hit me like cold water. No, I said quickly. I saw it end. Curiosity is fine, he said, but that notebook is just history, and I'd rather focus on the present. On you, he stepped closer, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with that gentle, practiced touch that made my knees weak. I wanted to ask more, I didn't, because I wanted him to keep looking at me like I was the best thing that had walked into his life in years. So I let the moment slide. I would regret that later. The first time I forgot something big was 3 months into our relationship. It was a Tuesday. I woke up in his bed, sunlight filtering through the blinds. His side was already empty. He always woke up before me. His body ran on some internal alarm the rest of us didn't have. I checked my phone, no new messages. I stretched, yawned, pulled on my clothes, and wandered into his kitchen. There was a note on the counter beside a cup of coffee in my favorite mug. Emergency site visit. Back by 3, lock the door when you leave. I smiled. I drank the coffee. I washed the mug because I wanted to be a good guest. Then I left. I took the subway, walked the 4 blocks to the clinic, checked in at the front desk, and sat down at my computer. I was halfway through sorting the morning paperwork when my manager, Rebecca, marched up to my desk. Emma, she said, arms crossed. Why are you here? I blinked. Because it's Tuesday. Her lips thinned. You called in sick an hour ago. You sounded terrible, said you were vomiting and couldn't even stand up. I froze. My phone was on the desk beside the keyboard. I picked it up slowly. There it was, a call from my number to the clinic at 7:03 a.m., duration 3 minutes and 17 seconds. My mouth went dry. Rebecca, I said, my voice thin. I didn't call. I wouldn't do that. I feel fine. She stared at me like she was trying to decide if I was mocking her. You did call, she said, unless someone stole your voice. There was a joke buried in there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. And maybe I was half asleep, I stammered. Maybe I don't know, I wouldn't lie about that. I wouldn't. Her eyes softened a fraction. If you're feeling better, you can stay, she said, but if this happens again, we'll need to talk. She walked away, leaving me with my phone in my hand and a cold pit forming in my stomach. I didn't remember calling at all, not even a flash. At lunch, I texted Daniel, did I seem sick this morning? He replied a minute later, you seem tired. Why? Apparently I called in sick to work. I don't remember doing it at all. I watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, then appear again. Stress, he wrote finally. You've been working too hard. You probably made the call half asleep and didn't store the memory. Brains are weird. Do you think I'm losing it? I typed, then immediately deleted it. Instead, I wrote, yeah, maybe. He replied with a single heart emoji. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. The second big thing I forgot wasn't so easy to explain away. It happened 2 weeks later. We were at his apartment, curled up on the couch, some forgettable movie playing in the background. My head was resting on his chest. I could hear his heartbeat steady and calm. Move in with me, he said abruptly. I lifted my head. What? Move in, he repeated, sitting up a little. You hate your apartment. You hate your roommate. I have space. It makes sense. It's only been 3 months, I said. He shrugged. So people get married in less time. That's a terrible argument. True, he smiled, but I like you a lot, and I hate dropping you off at that building and wondering if the ceiling will fall on your head in the middle of the night. I laughed, but my heart was racing. Think about it, he said softly. You mean no dishes left in the sink overnight, and you want me to pay rent? I asked, still trying to decide if he was serious. I want you to be safe, he said. Well, figure out the rest. It was so tempting. I could picture it waking up beside him every morning, not having to navigate Haley's passive-aggressive notes about cereal or whose turn it was to buy toilet paper. Let me think, I said finally. He nodded. Okay, no rush. We changed the subject. We watched the rest of the movie. Ordered takeout. It felt normal. But when I woke up the next morning, late sunlight streaming through the curtains, my phone buzzing on the nightstand, I saw the text from my mother. Your sister said you moved in with your new boyfriend. Is that true? I stared at the message, blinking. Then I saw the outgoing message from my phone, sent at 112 a.m. Yes, I am moving in with him. It's better this way. I need a fresh start. Please don't make a big deal out of it. My stomach lurched. I did not remember sending that. I sat up and looked around the bedroom like the walls might give me an answer. My clothes were folded on the chair. My bag was on the floor. Daniel was in the kitchen. I could hear him humming under his breath. I walked out, phone in hand. Did I tell you I'm moving in with you? I asked bluntly. He turned, spatula in hand, eyebrows raised. Good morning, did I? I insisted. He studied my face the way someone might study a crack in a wall, deciding if it was harmless or structural. Last night you said yes, he said slowly. You were excited about it. We talked about where your things would go. He flipped an egg like we were discussing the weather. I don't remember that, I whispered. He put the spatula down. Emma, he said gently, walking toward me. You were tired. You'd had a glass of wine. You were overthinking everything. I told you that you didn't have to decide right away, and then you hugged me and you said, I want to, and I believed you. There was nothing accusatory in his tone, no mockery, just calm, reassuring. Still, my heart was pounding. I texted my mother. I said, I don't remember doing it. He frowned. May I see? I handed him the phone. He read the message, then handed it back. Looks clear to me, he said. Maybe your brain is just discarding memories it finds stressful, like a defense mechanism. That's not how brains work, I muttered, but I wasn't entirely sure. He cupped my face in his hands. Well, figure it out, he said. If you want, we can see a specialist, a neurologist, or a therapist. Well, do it together. It felt like a shelter. I leaned into his hands. I want to remember, I whispered. You will, he said. And if you don't, it'll remember for both of us. The words should have comforted me. Instead, a small, cold thought crawled into the back of my mind. What if his memories and mine don't match? And what if everyone believes him instead of me? A week later, I moved in with him. I told myself it was practical. I told myself it was smart. My father didn't bother to call. My mother called twice, then texted that she hoped I knew what I was doing because girls like you don't get endless chances. I wanted to ask what that meant. I didn't because part of me already knew. The new place wasn't an apartment. It was a house. I didn't know that until the day he drove us there. Wed packed my things into boxes, books, clothes, my chipped blue mug, the squeaky desk chair I liked. Daniel insisted we didn't need most of my furniture. His was better. I pretended not to be offended. We loaded everything into a rented truck. I expected to drive toward his old apartment. Instead, we drove past it. Where are we going? I asked. He smiled, eyes on the road. Y'all see. We left the city. The buildings thinned out, trees replaced concrete. The air seemed clearer, even from inside the truck. I watched the suburbs slide past the window swings in front yards, mailboxes shaped like houses, children on scooters. My stomach fluttered with a mixture of excitement and unease. After about 45 minutes, we turned onto a narrower road lined with tall oaks that arched overhead like fingers. Then, without warning, the road ended at a black iron gate. Beyond it, at the end of a long, winding driveway, stood a house. No, not a house, a mansion. 3 stories of pale stone, dark shutters framing tall windows, a wide porch with white columns like something out of an old movie. My mouth fell open. Daniel, I breathed. What is this? Our home, he said quietly. The gate swung open as we approached, like it recognized him. Is this yours? I asked, staring at the house as the truck bumped along the driveway. Sort of, he said. It's complicated. I am overseeing the renovation. He glanced at me, and living here while I do, I stared at him. And you didn't think to mention that before I agreed to move in? He smiled. You said you wanted a fresh start. I thought this might qualify. Inside, the house smelled like dust and lemons. The floors were hardwood, worn but beautiful. A chandelier hung in the foyer, crystals catching the light from the windows. A staircase swept up in a graceful curve to the second floor. He agreed. No neighbors close by, no traffic, just us in the house. He looked at the building like it was alive. Does it ever feel creepy? I asked. All this emptiness, only if you decide it is, he said. Houses hold stories, Emma, but they don't choose them, people do. I didn't know what that meant, not yet. He showed me the bedroom he picked for us on the second floor. It was spacious, with high ceilings, a large window facing the lake, and a closet someone could live in. Our bed-high's bed, now our bed was already there, along with a dresser and 2 nightstands. He pointed to the one on the left. That one's yours, he said. Put whatever you like in it. I don't snoop. The words were light, a teasing callback to the notebook incident. I forced a laugh. There were more rooms: a study, a smaller bedroom he said he used as an office for plans and drawings, and a door at the end of the hallway that didn't match the others. It was older, heavy wood, painted white long ago, now worn at the edges. A brass doorknob gleamed dully in the light. When I reached for it, he stepped in front of me. "That one's locked," he said. "Why?" I asked. "Structural issues," he replied too quickly. "The floor in there isn't safe yet. I don't want you getting hurt. Can't you fix it?" I said. "I will," he said, "just not yet." He moved on, pointing out the linen closet as if nothing had happened. I looked back once at the locked door. Something about it bothered me. The way the paint around the knob was chipped, as if it had been grabbed too hard too often. The way the scuff marks on the floor in front of it looked almost like footprints. Days in the house settled into a strange, quiet rhythm. In the mornings, Daniel left early, often before I woke up, to meet crews or visit other sites. I took the subway into the city, to the clinic. At night, we cooked dinner together, ate at the big dining table that felt absurd with just two people, and sometimes walked down to the lake. He told me stories about the house. Back in the 50s, a doctor owned it, he said one evening, skipping stones across the water. He used it as a private practice. People said he cured things regular hospitals couldn't. "What kind of things?" I asked. "Nervous conditions," he said. "Depression, anxiety, women's troubles, they called it back then." I made a face. "Let me guess, half of them were just tired and trapped in bad marriages." "Probably," he agreed. "There are rumors he was unconventional, but there's no proof of anything bad." "Rumors about what?" I pressed. "Patients staying longer than they meant to," he said, squinting at the water, "not wanting to leave. Or not being allowed to. It was a different time." I hugged my arms around myself. "I am not a patient," I said, half joking. He looked at me. "No," he said slowly, "you're not." For a brief moment, I wondered if he disagreed with me. Then he smiled, the tension dissolved, and we walked back to the house. The forgetting got worse, little gaps at first. I'd misplace my keys and find them in the fridge. I'd put the cereal box in the oven and not remember doing it. I'd think I'd sent an email at work, but find it still unsent in my drafts folder. "Everyone does stuff like that," Daniel said when I mentioned it. "You're just paying more attention to it now." Maybe he was right, but then there were the other things, bigger things. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. "You what for Monday?" he said. "A neurologist. Her name is Dr. Bayan. She's very good." "You scheduled a doctor's appointment for me without telling me," I asked slowly. "You keep forgetting things," he said gently. "What if you forgot to schedule it or forgot to go?" "I'm not trying to control you, Emma. I'm trying to keep you safe." The words sat between us heavy. I swallowed. "Okay," I said finally. "Thank you." He smiled, relief softening his features. "Tomorrow," he said, changing the subject, "I have to go to a site on the other side of the city. Y'all be alone here most of the day." Try to rest, maybe bake something. You always look calmer when you bake. I forced a smile. I didn't tell him I was starting to feel less safe when I was alone, especially in this house, especially in the daytime quiet with the lake pressing against the glass and the locked door at the end of the hallway whispering my name. The next day, I woke up to an empty bed and a note on my pillow. Had to leave early. There's coffee in the kitchen. I'll be back for dinner. Don't forget to eat. I made coffee. I baked cookies. I tried to fill the silence with music, but the house absorbed. I told myself that was a lie. I walked toward it. The drawers were labeled with years. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. I hesitated. Curiosity again, always curiosity. I pulled open the drawer labeled 2020. Inside, there were folders. Each one had a name written on it in neat block letters. I flipped past a few until one caught my eye. Rivers Daniel, my skin prickled. I pulled the folder out, my hands trembling. Inside, there were papers, inspection reports, permits, contracts for various houses. Nothing alarming until I saw it. A single sheet tucked at the back. A psychological evaluation form. My breath caught when I saw the header Lakeshore Wellness Retreat Patient Intake, patient name Rivers Daniel, date 3 years ago. Reason for admission: anger management, impulse control, episodes of dissociation. Episodes of dissociation. The word swam on the page, my heartbeat thudded in my ears. I skimmed the rest of the form: history of volatile relationships, difficulty accepting rejection. A shred of defiance. I held up the form. What is this? He looked at it. For a moment, something flashed across his face. Then it was gone. Old paperwork, he said, from when I was a patient here. Here, I repeated, as in this house. He nodded once. I told you it used to be a retreat, he said. I stayed here after things got complicated in my life. I had some issues. I got help. That doesn't define me now. Episodes of dissociation. I read from the form: anger, volatile relationships. His jaw tightened. That was then, he said. Do you believe people can change, Emma? Yes, I said, because I wanted to. Because I needed to. Good, he said, because I did the work. I took the drugs they gave me. I talked to the therapists. I learned to control myself. I learned to breathe. I learned to build things instead of destroying them. He took a step closer. I resisted the urge to step back. You should have told me, I said softly. Would you have moved in if I had? He asked. I opened my mouth, closed it. I didn't want my past to ruin what we are building, he said. You already doubt yourself so much, Emma. I didn't want you doubting me too. I don't doubt you, I said automatically, which was a lie. He tilted his head. I see the way you look at that locked door upstairs, he murmured. My skin crawled. You think there's some dark secret in this house, he continued. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind outside tapping at the windows. Daniel slept beside me, breathing even and slow. The house creaked occasionally, settling. At 2:43 a.m., according to the glowing numbers on the digital clock, I slid out of bed. My feet touched the cold floor. I moved quietly down the hallway, each step sounding too loud in my ears. My heart knew where I was going before my head did, toward the end of the hallway, toward the locked door. The paint on the door looked almost gray in the dim light. The knob gleamed faintly. My hand lifted almost of its own accord and wrapped around the metal. Cold, I twisted. To my shock, it turned. The door was no longer locked. It opened with a soft sigh. The room beyond was dark. The smell hit me first. Not decay, not dust, something else, something faintly floral and chemical, like cheap perfume and cleaning products. I fumbled for a switch, found it. The light blinked on. The room was small. A bed neatly made, a dresser, a chair by the window. No dust, no cobwebs. No sign of hesitated. In the past, this was a patient room, he said finally. Like I told you, this house was a retreat. The owner hasn't cleared everything out yet. Don't lie to me, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. The water is fresh. The bed is made. The clothes Somyon's been living here. He exhaled slowly. I didn't want you to find out this way, he said. Ice slid down my spine. Find out what? I whispered. He looked at me for a long, long moment, as if he were weighing something on an invisible scale. Then he said softly, "You've been staying in this room for the past week, Emma." The words knocked the breath from my lungs. What? I choked. He stepped inside, moving slowly like I was an animal that might bolt. You said you needed your own space, he continued, that you felt crowded in our room, you were having trouble sleeping, you were restless. We agreed you'd try sleeping in here for a while until things settled. You were worried it meant something was wrong with us. I told you it didn't. You cried. I held you. We set up your things. You picked the cardigan to leave here. You chose the book on the nightstand. I shook my head, backing away until I bumped into the dresser. I don't remember, I whispered. Why don't I remember those conversations? I asked, because he said softly, whatever is happening to you is getting worse. Silence pressed in around us. You think I'm crazy, I said. I think you need help, he replied. His answer was worse. He stepped closer and reached out, but I flinched back. He stopped, hand hovering in the air. I love you, he said quietly. Nothing you do or forget will change that, but we are past the point of pretending this is just stress. The appointment on Monday, it's not optional anymore. I stared at him, at the room, at my own hands. I'm scared, I whispered. I know, he said. I am too. He took my hand then, gently, and this time I let him. He led me out of the room, closed the door carefully, and turned the knob. It locked with a soft click. For tonight, he said, sleep with me. We'll deal with the rest in the morning. I let him guide me back to our bedroom. I lay down beside him. He wrapped an arm around me. His heartbeat was steady against my back. I stared into the darkness. At some point, I must have drifted off, because the next thing I remembered was waking up to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Daniel was already up. There was a cup on the nightstand, a note beside it. There are things I haven't told you, not because I don't trust you, but because I don't want to lose you. My chest tight. I reached for the nightstand drawer to grab a hair tie. Something white fluttered out and landed on the floor. I bent to pick it up. It was a small piece of paper, folded once. There was handwriting on the outside. My handwriting, my name, Emma. My fingers shook as I unfolded it. Inside, in the same handwriting, were 4 words, words that made my blood run cold. Don't believe anything he says. I stared at the note, at my own handwriting accusing the man I loved. A question roared through my skull, louder than my pulse, drowning everything else out. If I wrote this, why don't I remember why? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss parts 2 and 3 of this chilling story.